Hey, hello, my Redskins fans. Welcome back once again, my fellow feathered tribesmen, into this channel where we discuss everything Washington Redskins. So do me a favor, go to that refrigerator of yours, pull out yourself a nice tall glass of whatever your preference. Sit back, kick your feet up, and let me take the helm for just a little while. In this channel, where we may not always agree, but the admission here is free. I am your West Coast host, Burgundy Fly Guy, and this is Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be my NFL draft review for the Washington Redskins. It's taken a while for me to come out with this video. I had a lot of the stuff going on, and I've been trying to come out with some videos on some of the recent news that's hit the newswire. It's getting harder and harder for me to come out with these videos, at least as stuff begins to happen. I've been kind of waiting to put together a draft review because I know I've got a little bit of time between when the draft is over and when camp actually starts. But I've seen a bunch of draft review videos by some of our other Redskin vid makers out there, and I've actually enjoyed them very, very much. You guys do some great work out there. To give you guys my opinion on some of the stuff that's gone down, I'm going to cover this very, very quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I think most of us pretty much already know what to expect. We already know the results of this draft. We already know the players that we have picked up. And I think all you guys are interested in is my opinion on who it is we picked and how well it's going to fare for the season. That's pretty much going to be it. I don't need to give you guys bios. You guys have pretty much already done a majority of that yourselves. So moving along, I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way to the top. And I'm going to go by the bottom three individuals that we picked up. We picked up two 7th-round draft picks and a 6th-round draft pick. We picked up a 6th-rounder, Dion Hamilton out of Alabama, inside linebacker. I don't really remember a whole lot of this guy, to tell you the truth. I've watched a lot of Alabama games, but that's not necessarily a name that really stands out for me. I've read the bio on him, and I just think that we have a major focus right now from our scouting department on players from Alabama. And that's fine. Alabama football players, I think there are certain positions from Alabama that I think you really need to take a look at if you're an NFL scouting division. I think that there are players that transition really, really well from that, from that level or from that team to the next level. And I think that there are some positions that don't translate very well at all. For instance, I would never select a quarterback from Alabama. I would be very hesitant on selecting a running back from Alabama, whether that individual was horrible or whether that individual was extremely good. I don't think I would take either one, and I have my own personal reasons as to why I would do that. But anybody on defense, That coach over there is a guy who is defensive minded. He thinks in terms of defense. He understands positions very well. He understands scheme very well. And if you are going to play under that man's system and thrive, then you have a pretty good shot at performing very well at the next level, because you have the mentality, you have the work ethic, and you have the hunger to go out there and do things that a lot of NFL scouts and a lot of NFL combines and a lot of NFL position coaches are looking for. And so I don't know all that much about Hamilton. I am glad to have him as a prospect for helping our team in the future. Moving on to Greg Stroman, quarterback out of Virginia Tech. I've done a little bit of research on this guy, not much. They're saying he's a smaller framed individual. One of the things that I had read about him, and I'll bring it up right now, is they had mentioned that coverage skill, as far as this kid is concerned, is not a concern. I'm going to read a quote here by a defensive backs coach, NFL defensive backs coach. And he says that he worries more about him holding up as an NFL tackler because of how thin he is. He's a very, very thin individual, very skinny framed, very small framed, thin legs, thin arms. He's not worried about the coverage part at all. He's been changing, especially those individuals changing to big guys at wide receiver. And he's done really, really well against them. The portion is holding up against the tackles. I think there are a lot of teams out there who would take a look at this individual, Greg Stroman, as somebody that you could probably be a little bit of a project player. I think we're kind of looking at a little bit of an individual to come in and help out with the slot coverage. That's really where you need your coverage scheme. And really where you need to cover corner like an individual of this size. Everything I'm reading about this guy says that his coverage ability is actually very, very good. He wins a lot of the battles he goes up against. He's sort of a ball hawk. He recognizes certain combo routes. He's able to change position and change direction really, really well for a guy his size. And frankly, I like it, to tell you the truth. I like the sound of it, and I'm looking forward to it. The very, very last pick that we took, 7th round, 38th overall, was a wide receiver, Terry Quinn, out of SMU. I don't know what to think about players that come out of SMU because of the state of that organization and the way that their past has been. I think a lot of us know that that's an organization that's going to be affected for the next 20, 30 years based on stuff that's gone on in the past. But they still produce some pretty good players. Wide receiver, we definitely need wide receiver help. And with the current condition of our wide receiver status, I think that we're not going to turn away any prospects that have the ability to come in here and catch the ball. Our slot receiver position is pretty much figured out, assuming that our slot receiver is able to stay healthy this season. Our tight end position is figured out as long as our tight end position is able to stay healthy. Those are always big question marks going into every season. The big question mark right now is who do you fill in as outside threats at wide receiver at that X position, because we don't necessarily have that. We haven't had that since we let go of Pierre Garçon, and we need a third down option. Somebody other than throwing it down into the flat like we've been normally doing. And that's worked upon occasion, but you need that individual to go out there and pick up and move those chains at the wide receiver spot. Somebody to challenge that defense horizontally, not necessarily vertically. We haven't been able to do either. We all know that Kirk Cousins does not like to throw the ball vertically, especially on third down. I personally think that Smith would challenge deep a little bit more, even though he's done it a lot in Kansas City. Kansas City has a lot more wide receiver options as an outside threat on third down than Washington does. So don't expect Smith to come in here and challenge vertically or challenge those wide receiver spots for third down just because he did it in Kansas City. We are very, very, very unproven in that position. That was a position that Terrell Pryor was supposed to come in here and remedy, and it never happened. So that position is very much open for grabs. We have the potential, we have the talent. We just be able to have the confidence and the history in order to put a lot of confidence in the fans' minds and the coaches' minds as far as that position is concerned. So picking him up, Terry Quinn, hey, you know what? It is what it is. Hopefully he's going to be able to come in here and help make a difference. The next couple spots that I definitely want to cover, the number 3 pick, number 4 pick, and number 5 pick. I'm going to cover number 3, a guy that we took, Jerron Christian, offensive tackle out of Louisville. I didn't necessarily know what to think about the tackle pick. I don't know. I trust our offensive lineman coach to be able to pick and help select an individual that he's going to be able to work with. He knows the dynamic of that offensive line way better than I do. I think for a depth position at tackle, I think it's a great idea, but we don't necessarily need a whole lot of help at tackle. Maybe we're thinking about moving somebody at guard You know, somebody like an Inseki. We don't really have tackles that are going to be able to transition all that well to guard. And this was all before we ended up taking Sean Loval back. So what does this tell me? That we take a tackle out of the draft and then select an old guard who hasn't been working for us in the past. We decide to pick him back up again. I don't... Honestly, the only thing that I can think of that makes sense for me from a logical standpoint is that we have taken Sean Loval back to the position to help transition a tackle to guard. That's the only thing I can think of. Rather than throwing a guard out there for the 2018 season to protect Alex Smith, we're going to throw a guard in there that knows our system, knows our offense, knows the blocking scheme. And frankly, if his health is okay, because he was hurt a majority of last season, if his health is not in question, then he's somebody that could definitely help us out to a certain extent. Sean Loval, even healthy, is not necessarily that great of a guard. This was a position of need that a lot of fans felt that this team was going to address in this offseason, and we haven't addressed it. Signing Sean Loval has not addressed the guard situation. It's only addressed the roster spot that we need to fill at guard. That's about it. I don't necessarily know if I take a look at anybody on this football team at the tackle position that can transition as guard. The only one that I could possibly think of would be Chase Rourier, center position. Maybe he could transition to a guard spot. Other than that, I don't really see it at the tackle positions. The tackles that we have are pretty much tackles. And a lot of them are actually very good tackles. I don't necessarily know anything about this Jerron Christian guy as to whether we can transition him to guard. I don't know. They've got all that figured out. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what our plans are, because now that we've taken a tackle, Jerron Christian, this is going to be somebody on a rookie deal that in the next year or two, we're going to see a tackle on this football team that we're not going to sign that has a contract coming up. That's the only thing I could possibly think of that we're planning for the future with this kid out of Louisville. Moving on down to Troy Apke out of Penn State. I knew a little bit about Troy Apke seeing him play. He's a very good safety. One of the few safeties that was left in the fourth round. Safeties and corners went really, really quick in the second and the third. And we ended up taking a tackle out of the third, moving back. We took pretty much some of the crumbs that were left on the board. And Troy Apke's not a bad safety. It's going to be interesting to see how well he does. He's going to help accentuate a safety position that we are already pretty good at. We've got some really, really good depth there, assuming that those individuals are able to stay healthy as well. We could definitely use the help there at that position. So hopefully Troy Apke is going to be able to come in here and learn under a system from a couple of individuals who've had a year or two underneath their belt under this system that have been able to flourish. So I kind of got my eye on this Troy Apke guy, and hopefully he's going to be able to work out for us. So I'm excited to see that we were able to take a safety and address that defensive backfield. Now moving on to the next position, Tim Settle, defensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. This is a guy that I really, really wanted to point to. As far as this draft was concerned, I was not surprised that Virginia Tech's Tim Settle was still available in the 5th round. I was not surprised at all. In fact, if I want to take a look at my notes, if I can bring my notes up, I want to be able to... I had positions that I had listed on here that I felt that people were of value. Let's find out where Tim is at. Tim is right here. I had Tim at a value of a 4th round draft pick, and I had him as a steal for a pick in the 6th. So if he was available in the 6th round, that he was going to be a steal as far as a pickup was concerned in the draft. We ended up taking him. He was available in the 5th. Would he have been available past the 5th to move on back to the 6th and pick him up? Probably not. But I feel that beyond the 4th round, picking him up in the 5th is a great, great pickup for us. I love this pick. Tim Settle drops down to the 4th round, 5th round, in my opinion, because of some of the particulars in regards to his game. Defensive tackles go really, really quick, especially the really, really good ones. And not to say that Tim Settle is not a good defensive tackle. He's a good defensive tackle. The problem is his weight. That's his problem. I think that one of the issues with him, even when he was at Virginia Tech, was it was really, really difficult to get him down to 335. It was really difficult to get him down to 335. And even at 335, he's too heavy, in my opinion. Taking a look at some of the things that I have listed at him, some of the good things that I'll go ahead and go down the list of things. And this is stuff that I had done research on months ago in regards to Tim Settle. He has great one-on-one push up the field. He can collapse the pocket fairly well. He has great strength, great hand speed. He's disruptive. He spends a lot of time in the backfield on one-on-ones. On 3rd down, as a 3-tech, He's able to fight really, really well off double teams and gain a little bit of pressure on the quarterback, and that's definitely something that you want to see. Somebody who's able to take a double team and push that double team into the backfield. There's so few defensive tackles that are able to do that at the next level. If he's going to be able to do that at the next level, then that's something you definitely want to see him do. So if he's able to do it in college, that's definitely something that's going to be a huge green flag for you to pick up on your football team. What else do I have? I have one of the major games that I had seen was Miami. Miami played against Virginia Tech, and I started to notice that Miami was running around Tim Settle a lot, taking their running back, and their running backs were not necessarily between the tackle running backs. They're very speedy, very shifty guys that like to take it out to the outside, but they were also running around Tim Settle quite a bit because that middle was getting plugged up. They would much rather run the ball towards a Tremaine Edmonds as opposed to a Tim Settle. And that says a lot about Tim Settle, in my opinion. I'm starting to see that. And for somebody, the last thing that I have on this kid, for somebody who is a plus 300-pounder, he has great athletic ability with his feet. Those are some of the positive things that I have to say about Tim Settle. And I had watched numerous games of Virginia Tech, specifically looking at Tim Settle, because I'm trying to find a reason as to why I can bump his draft grade up to at least a third or a second-round draft selection. So I watch a number of those games from Virginia Tech. So I know quite a bit about Tim Settle and what to expect from him as a collegiate football player. Some of the negative things that I see about him. He spent more time playing a 3-tech and a 4-3 as far as the Virginia Tech's defensive scheme was concerned. His talent is on showcase when he plays in this position as a defensive tackle. I also looked at Ricky Walker, defensive tackle, who was also a very, very good player. Let's see. Yeah, so having this other individual out there, Ricky Walker, who was playing next to him, I noticed that Tim Settle played a little bit better as a 3-tech when Ricky Walker was also out there with him. So I didn't necessarily know if this was a scheme that Virginia Tech was trying to capsulate on, whether it was him being able to play next to Ricky Walker. But when those two individuals were out there, single blocking either one of those individuals opened up one of those guys to do some really, really good things. Yeah, and it was one of the things I had to put it on my notes, is that this could have been very misleading as far as how talented Tim Settle was in a lot of the games that you're going to see him in. If you see highlight reel footage, if you start to watch game footage, pay attention to see if you see Ricky Walker next to him. This could end up helping us out if we have some really good defensive tackles on this football team, and we're starting to get them, to see what kind of performance you're going to get out of Tim Settle. Tim Settle, in my opinion, on this football team is the best prospect for a 0-tech nose tackle that I've seen in a long time. That is the potential, and that is the 0-tech nose tackle that you want on this football team. Forget about all this crap that you're hearing about Payne being a nose tackle. I'll get to that later. But right here, Tim Settle at 6'3", 335, that's the individual that you want to see as a nose tackle. Picking him up in the 5th round, if this kid ends up playing to his potential at the next level in the next couple of years, this is going to be a massive steal for us. But a lot of ifs there. One of the other things was his pursuit down the line of scrimmage after the football. He has horrible pursuit angles. Horrible. And and I think what it is a matter of agility for a big 335-plus individual. Being able to turn those hips and pursue down the line of scrimmage is something that he is not necessarily all that good at. And frankly, I don't necessarily know if that's all that important to me. Maybe that's going to come through time. But right now, the only thing that I want with the basic attributes of a defensive tackle that I'm hungry for right now, that I really, really want on this football team. I'm not looking for an all-pro football player coming out of college right now. I just want somebody to control A-gap pressure. That's all I want. I want somebody that's going to be able to control A-gap. And that's a huge ask for an individual coming in at nose tackle in a 3-4. It's a huge ask, especially when it comes to a team that ranked one of the last, in fact, last against run defense. You don't have A-gap, responsibility if you're last in the league on playing defense against the run. Bringing Tim Settle in here, that's all I really want from him. That's all I'm really going to be looking at for him from his rookie season, is how well does he handle A-gap pressure. I'm looking at first and second downs. I'm looking at running plays. I'm looking at individuals, especially running quarterbacks. Are you able to maintain pressure, maintain your drive speed, but also able to maintain gap pressure when people come in at your gap and be able to make a play? Shifty quarterbacks that we have out there. Individuals have no problem running up the middle. Guys like you know, the Seattle quarterback, this kid out of Louisville that just got drafted into the league that is, you know, going to Baltimore. These guys that are really, really good at being able to pick apart defenses, running up the middle, and making life crazy for linebackers. Is this guy going to be able to control his gap as far as responsibility is concerned? That's where my concern comes up with the line of scrimmage and the pursuit along the line of scrimmage after the football. Another thing, he got really, really sluggish in the fourth quarter. That's a concern, is his cardio. What kind of cardio is this kid is he gonna have? How much playing time are we gonna be able to see him take advantage of as a much heavier football player? This is something that Green Bay took advantage of when it came to us in the playoff game, was being able to snap that football when a slow, big defensive tackle can't get his fat ass off the football field when he should. These are going to be things that we're going to have to take a look at. Another thing, he pretty much played every single down in the fourth quarter in a lot of the games that I watched with him in Virginia Tech. And you want some of your best players out there, but a big guy like that, you've got to be able to rotate him in and off the field. I would like to see him rotate a little bit more off the field. The more playing time he gets, I don't necessarily know if that's going to be beneficial for him, especially as a young football player. Easing him into that nose tackle spot is something that I think I would do. One of the other things that I have listed under him is that I had him ranked a little bit lower because he played a lot as a 3-tech and a 4-3. And frankly, if those are the parameters, you're going to rank a little bit lower in my book, because we don't run a 4-3. We do run a lot of tackle positions in a 3-tech, and those are positions that you're going to have to be able to play. It's just as a nose tackle, you're going to be bouncing around all over that line as far as within that 0, 1 to 2 and 3 technique are concerned. It just depends on down and distance, depends on coverage, depends on a lot of things. But Tim Settle's not really a guy that I would put in a position beyond a 3. If I'm looking at him to be a nose tackle, then nose tackle position is pretty much what it's going to be for him, and that's really all I would groom him to be, personally. And I would rank him a little bit lower. The reason why I ranked him so low is because he didn't play a whole lot as a nose tackle in Virginia Tech. So I'm not saying he can't play in that position as a nose tackle. I'm just saying it's going to take a little bit more for him to become acclimated to that position. Moving on. Moving up to the next 3 individuals. Let's see. Actually, the next 2, the remaining 2 individuals, we're going to cover the first-round pick and the second-round pick. First-round pick, Payne. Second-round pick, Guice out of LSU. I want to hit the Guice situation first. I don't have a problem with the Guice selection from a certain perspective. I had listed in a video before on what it was that I was looking for at a running back position. If we were insistent on picking up a running back, then Burgundy Fly Guy had his idea on the type of running back position, the type of running back that he would want to draft on this football team. I was looking for a first and second down back. Somebody that can come in, run between the tackles, get us 3-4 yards, and that's pretty much it. You know, a banger. Somebody can come in there, take some punishment, take some hits, run some really good scheme. Unfortunately, an individual to do that, you need a really good offensive line. And we didn't necessarily have that last year. We were injury plagued like crazy. We were down to our 3rd and 4th roster spots coming in to fill a lot of those offensive line demands, and it showed. It definitely showed in our running game. And this year is going to be a little bit better because we're going to be a lot healthier, and we're going to see a little bit of improvement. Does that mean we need to go out and spend a top first or second round draft selection at running back in order to ale our woes? Not necessarily. I personally think that our running game is going to open itself up as long as our offensive line play is able to hold up. I think you're going to find a greater improvement in that area, way more so than you can finding a top-end running back to come in here and run. I don't care who you are. If there's no offensive line blocking for you, you're not going to be able to run the ball very well. That's basic football. Basic football for you. Bringing in a first-round, second-round draft selection in here, it's going to be great that you have that position covered, but if he's not going to be able to run, take a look at some of Guice's runs. I've watched this kid a couple of times because I was looking at some positions on the defensive side of the football with LSU. In fact, if I can go through my database here, taking a look at some of the individuals, one of the individuals that I was looking at was Rashard Lawrence, defensive tackle. Another one that I was looking at was Arden Key, outside linebacker for LSU. So when you're watching individuals from LSU, you can't help but also take a look at, the offensive side of the football and see Guice run the ball. And the thing is, he had some pretty good blocking. One of the things that I noticed about LSU, the one thing they like to do is they like to chop down below the knees. You know, they like to drive on the football, get you down below the waist, and just take you down to the ground, so you don't really have much of an opportunity to stand up and make a solid tackle on a running back. And you get a hard-hitting running back like Darius Guice, he's going to be able to knock you on your ass, and he's going to have those plays where it looks like the guy's just a bruiser. But it all basically starts with the offensive line play. What type of push is that individual going to get? If you're going to watch highlight reel footage of Darius Guice, I challenge you to watch 4 or 5 highlight reel videos of Darius Guice, and don't watch Darius Guice. Watch an offensive lineman take out the individual that's in front of him. That's what it needs to be able to pop open a guy like Darius Guice, is being able to have great, solid offensive line blocking. We don't have that here in Washington. The only guy that I know of that's able to put that kind of push on individuals right now is probably Trent Williams. And that's it, on a consistent basis. I've been able to see some things from some of our other linemen to be able to put that kind of push on defensive players. But it's very, very few and far between. That's not necessarily why we drafted the guys that we have on that offensive line or signed them. You're not going to see that kind of play out of Sean Lobau. It's just not going to happen. And if you're going to run to the left, you better hope he's running behind Trent Williams. And all kinds of things we can go into that. But Darius Guice, I was not necessarily all that happy with the pick with Darius Guice in that position. I would have gone with another defensive player, personally. I'll take Darius Guice, but in my opinion, the one thing that really, really helped us out was when we traded down. I felt that that move was way more important than the Darius Guice selection to move down. I felt that moving down and getting our 3rd round draft pick was worth more than any running back in this entire draft, with the exception of the kid that came out of Penn State. To me, that was invaluable. Not having a 3rd round draft selection because of the quarterback situation that you effed up here for the last 5 years was a huge, huge sacrifice. To me, that was so massive. Getting rid of that 3rd round draft selection. To some of you, that doesn't seem like a big deal. But it is. It's a huge deal not having that 3rd round draft pick. Moving down in the 2nd to get that 3rd round draft pick, I was so happy about that. I could have cared less who we took with that 2nd round draft pick. We ended up picking Darius anyway. The guy was still there at the end. It pissed off a lot of Redskin fans when we moved down and put Darius on that board, hoping he was going to be there later on in the 2nd. There were a lot of you that thought, well, there goes Darius. You know, he may as well start looking for another running back because somebody's going to pick him up now. And it didn't happen. He ended up falling to us anyway. So we were able to get the running back that we wanted, and we were also able to pick up that 3rd round draft selection in Jerron Christian, that offensive tackle coming in here, showing up a lot of that backfield for us at the offensive tackle position. We would not have had that selection available to us had we not moved down. To me, that was a brilliant move. Darius Guice, first of all, my overall opinion on all these guys are out. When it comes to these draft selections. That's just the way I feel about rookies. And same thing with Darius. I really don't care to really comment too much on Darius because he hasn't done anything for us yet. I have not seen him at the next level yet. There are so many players that we have drafted that come in here that end up being busts, individuals that we ended up letting go. Is Darius going to be along those same lines? I don't know. Frankly, the last couple of years we've drafted really, really well. I'm excited to see what it is that he does, but I don't have my hopes are not all that high on him or anybody in this draft until I can see their performance on game day. That is going to be my overall synopsis. So I think for the most part, picking him up in the 2nd, I'll take it. I'll take that pick. And then we'll see what it is that he can do. But frankly, in order to get the full potential of a Darius Guice at the next level for this football team, you've got to shore up that offensive line issue at running the ball way more than you got to shore up the next highlight reel running back coming in here, because it's not going to happen if you don't get step 1 taken care of. Last but not least, Payne, the first selection, 13th overall, coming out of Alabama, defensive tackle. I know a lot about this Payne because I watched a lot of Alabama games where I concentrated specifically on Payne. I have been on the Warpath's show. I ended up going on his show during the draft when he was going live and filming, and I gave my opinions on there, how I was very, very much in favor of the Payne pick. We had 3 individuals out there that were available, and we ended up taking Deron. And this was not a surprise to any hardcore Redskin fan out there that knew the draft. It was very obvious which player we were going to take, which player that we wanted. And this, to some surprise, has come at the behest of some individuals out there that really wanted us to pick a couple of other players. And I think this is going to happen regardless of what it is that you do. Did we select best player available, or did we select for need? Frankly, I think we leaned a little bit more on the side of need. One of the things I want to comment, though, we had some individuals out there that have made comments about the Daron Payne pick and some comments about why it is that you do not want to take the best player available when it is there, as opposed to taking a Daron Payne, considering a Daron Payne is an individual that is a really, really good defensive tackle in a very, very rich, target-rich environment for defensive tackles. One of the things that Tremaine Edmonds, who was available, and I had mentioned it on the Warpath show, I personally would have selected a Tremaine Edmonds. Now, if Tremaine Edmonds ends up not being selected, and we take Daron Payne anyway, and Tremaine ends up falling below us, am I upset about that? Not necessarily. Frankly, first and foremost, I wanted Vita Vea. A lot of us wanted Vita Vea, and to tantalize us, to tickle us, to tantalize us, he dropped all the way down until the 12th pick, and then he ends up getting selected before us. He ends up going to another football team. Right, he ends up falling and falling and falling, and all of our hopes get up there, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, Vita Vea is going to be available, and no, he ends up going to somebody else. I can't even necessarily remember who it was that picked him up. Who was it picked him up? Oh, Tampa Bay picked him up right before us. Yeah, he's going to help out Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay probably needs him more than we do. But man, picked at number 12. No longer available, and that automatically drops Daron Payne down into our lap when we take Daron Payne. Listen, this is my opinion of Daron Payne. Watching a lot of Daron Payne, I, for one, was a huge advocate of Roquan Davis out of Alabama. He was the one guy that was at the top of my list behind Vita Vea as a nose tackle. Unfortunately, Roquan Davis is still a collegiate football player. He did not enter into this draft. And he's going to be, in my opinion, of Vita Vea caliber defensive tackle talent in whatever draft he decides to come out for. He's going to be one of the better defensive tackles. Is probably going to go in the first and or second round. But playing next to him was Daron Payne. Now, one of the comments that I heard is that you have a million Daron Paynes that are available out there, and picking him in the first was not necessarily the best selection for us. I wholeheartedly disagree with that comment. I have watched a lot of defensive tackle talent out of this year's draft. I've done a ton of research on these guys, and I have to say about 90% of the draft talent that went at defensive tackle in this 2018 draft, I've seen a ton of footage on. And I will tell you, Daron Payne is probably one of the better defensive tackles that came out of collegiate football. His athleticism is unprecedented. I have him valued as a first-round draft selection. I had him valued at a first-round draft selection way back in February when I was doing a whole lot of Alabama research, and that throughout that time in the NFL draft, that opinion as Daron Payne being a first-round draft selection never wavered. At no point did it ever waver. I had him as a steal in the second round. If Daron Payne drops to a second round and you have the ability to pick him up, he is a steal at the second because he should have gone in the first. Tremendous athletic ability, a guy who's got a real nose for the football. And you can see that he's one of the few defensive tackles, in my opinion, that had real, true playmaker ability. Besides Vita, he was, a very, very good defensive tackle. Great quickness off the ball. Great speed. One-on-one, this guy's a matchup nightmare at the collegiate level. He's got a great switch move. Great outside pressure with great speed. I saw him as a first-round draft selection, even if you're not necessarily watching the performance of the national title game against Georgia. I think his performance against Georgia solidified his ability as being a first-round draft selection. The only concern that I had was that I ranked him a little bit lower in my selection as far as defensive tackles were concerned, because I was looking for a nose tackle. Daron Payne is not a nose tackle. He's not. He's a 3-tech and a 4-3. That is where he shines. Right next to Roquan Davis, who's also a defensive tackle and a 4-3. Roquan, I felt definitely as a 300-pounder, was an individual at 6'7". 300 pounds was a much better selection at nose tackle, and Daron Payne coming in playing it as a 3 technique. And that is personally where I would like to see him play. I don't necessarily know if watching Jonathan Allen and Deron playing next to each other is going to be the ideal situation that I want to see Deron Payne in, because that means Deron Payne's probably going to have to play that nose tackle spot. I don't know if I necessarily want to see that. Having a Deron Payne alternate with Jonathan Allen, that's probably what we're going to see more of, only if we end up taking this Tim Settle situation as a nose tackle seriously. So that's honestly, I think, you know, am I upset with the athleticism that we left on the board in the first round? I am not upset by it, because I think Deron Payne is a player. I honestly do. You know, do I think Deron Payne should have gone later in the first? You know, first round draft selection is a first round draft selection, guys. You know, it doesn't really matter. You know, first round draft selection is a first round draft selection. Whoever it is available to you at 13 that's going to help your team out, I am about taking that individual. I would much rather have seen a Tremaine Edmunds come in here and play, because he was by far the more athletic individual. And I was surprised Tremaine Edmunds fell. I thought Tremaine Edmunds was going to fall and land right in Tampa Bay's lap. But he didn't. He ended up falling right past Tampa. He ended up falling right past Washington. And that's a tragedy. I have a feeling Tremaine Edmunds is going to be one of those names that you're going to hear a lot of in the NFL in years to come. And that's an individual that we passed up, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. I have him, listed. He's not a zero tech at all. His supremacy lies pretty much as a 3 or a 5. He needs a little help on double teams when it comes to that middle position, and maintaining gap control against running quarterbacks. That's going to be something for him. He's only 6'2" at 308. But he has tremendous strength, tremendous ability to be able to get to that football, and he's got athleticism, superior athleticism to a lot of defensive tackles that came into this draft selection. So that's going to do it for me as far as the draft selection is concerned. I don't want to put too much emphasis on these draft picks that we pick, because frankly, all of this now does not matter. It does not matter at all, because now these guys have picked up the burgundy and gold, and I don't care what type of player you were coming out of college. I don't care. You're just a number filling in a gap at this point, and we're going to see what type of player it is that you are. Turning my head is earning those colors. Earning those colors. Coming in, doing it is what you're supposed to do. Coming in, you're watching your film. You're coming in, you're hitting the weight room. You're eating what you're supposed to be eating. You're doing what it is you're supposed to be doing to rise to the occasion as a professional. Being able to see that and perform at the next level is what you want to see all of these guys do. And our team's ability to flourish and mature rookie talent coming out of the draft is something that we have not necessarily been able to do. So those are the two things that I'm looking for. I want to see us to be able to cultivate these players and be able to have them perform for us well beyond 2020. So that's going to do it for me, guys. Leave your comments down below. Like and share this video if you get a chance. And for all of us fans of the Twin Feather, we ride together. Redskins for life. Until next time, peace out.